I'm so excited about this video. Drawing hair is often overlooked, but can absolutely transform a portrait or figure drawing. And Frank Gambino is a master at it, and he's sharing with us his really simple and really effective step-by-step procedure for drawing hair. And Mayko very patiently posed while he drew her hair. And then at the end of the video, you'll see me trying the method out and getting extra tips from Frank on how to do it. So hi, my name's Kenzo, this is Love Life Drawing. Let's get straight to the lesson with Frank.
The first thing I do is I start off with the structure of the hair. So I don't do the strands, I do the shape of what I'm seeing. So in the same way that I would draw, say, an arm or a leg as a shape, the first thing I establish is the shape of the hair, what I'm seeing. Now, what you tend to find is that if you sort of, when I'm looking at people doing drawings, initially the first thing that they do is they go instantly dark, which means that they've got nowhere to go with the mark making or with the tones that they're using. So what I try and do is I try and start off, even though Mayko's hair is very dark, I'll start off with a mid-tone. So what I'll do is I'll break a little piece of this, piece of charcoal, I use the side, it doesn't matter terribly if I go off the edge like that a little bit. But most of what I'm looking at is going to happen within this shape. Okay, and like I said, it's a mid-tone. I've gone with a darkish mid-tone because obviously Mayko's hair is very dark. So now I look for two different things. I look for the light areas and I look for the dark areas in the hair. Now, one of the main things to bear in mind, and this is the thing that's always worth sort of knowing, is that the direction of Mayko's hair is going in that direction. So that's the way that the strands of the hair are going. Now normally, and this is why I wanted to use straight dark hair to start off with, the basics of drawing hair are in straight dark hair. You can see them a little bit easier than you can with, say, like curly or wavy hair. And when you come to drawing like blonde hair or sort of mousy brown hair, what you tend to find is that it starts to get more complicated because there's more going on. Darker hair, straight dark hair tends to be a little bit simpler. And the main thing that you're looking for is the way that the light hits the hair. So I've sort of given you a sense of the direction of the strands. Now what tends to happen with the light is it cuts across that shape. So it always seems to be at right angles to the direction of the strands of hair.
Okay.
So it's easier to show you that than to explain it. So what I'm seeing is I'm seeing a light that cuts across like that.
Right.
And another light that cuts across here, if that makes sense. So there we go. So we've got the light coming that way, even though the strands are going in that direction. Now what I'm going to do, so I've established that first. Now I'm going to look for the dark areas, which also seem to be cutting across. So this is very dark here. And because I started with a mid-tone, it means that I can pull out some light and I can put down some dark.
Is that just with your hand that you've got those lights?
Yeah.
You just cut it across?
That's a useful thing to ask because what I find is initially I use my hand because if I later on want to sort of bring out the highlights even more, if I see something that's even lighter, I can then use the rubber, which I'm going to do this, which will give me a lighter tone.
Okay, because yeah, there's still a little bit left by your hand.
Yeah, that's right. So it gives me more of it's lighter than the mid-tone that I started with, but it gives me a slightly sort of, it gives me a lighter area. And then I've got the option to use the rubber, or if I wanted to, some chalk pastel to go over the top of it. But I find that the hand taking off some of those marks is good initially. Okay, so So I'm looking for these dark areas. And you can see I'm still using the side of the charcoal, this small piece. So this probably makes a bit more sense as to why I need it to be small. So when I look there, so I'm putting in the dark areas as I see them. Now can you see that there's this dark line that cuts through here? I've sort of slightly left it. I'm just going to put it more as I see it. And this isn't quite as light as I've made it, so I can knock it back a bit. Putting the charcoal in. And here there seems to be a light area. Again, I'm using my fingers. Okay, there's some lightness here. And when I come to here, it's a little bit more formless. It gets a little bit more fuzzy at this edge. So I'm going to fuzz it up a little bit. Okay. So at the moment, hopefully this is making sense. Now I'm coming back with a little bit more structure. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out some of the marks that I'm going to use the rubber. So I've gone off the edge here and off the edge at the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the rubber just to give myself a bit more definition. Now, this is when you put the strands in. Now what you'll find is that all the work that you've done here to try and give the hair volume will stay underneath. So the way that you should think of this is that if I was drawing a round jug or a round pot or a sphere, I'm trying to give the thing that I'm looking at, the hair that I'm looking at, I'm trying to give it volume. But eventually I do need to turn it into hair. And this is where the strands come in. So just bear in mind what I've already put down. If I start to put in the strands in the direction that I see them going, the marks that I've made underneath remain. So can you see how sort of drawing and establishing the volume first gives you that sense of hair?
Yeah, that's very cool.
It's pretty straightforward, isn't it? It's pretty easy. So here I can sort of see that there's some loose hair. So I can then start to put that in. If there's any, like sometimes you'll get like little strands that sort of...
Stray strands.
Yeah, there's one that's cutting across her ear.
Yeah.
The main thing to bear in mind though is the way that this light cuts across and cuts across in right angles.
Yeah.
So, okay, so to reiterate, you start off with the structure of the hair. You give yourself a mid-tone going across the hair. You then start to put in the light areas and the dark areas, and you bear in mind that the way that the light hits, and it does vary once you start to get wavy hair, but once you're drawing straight hair, you can see that light going across.
Yeah.
So you start to establish it and you start to draw it as a volume in the way that you would draw a jug or a teapot or whatever. Then the last thing of all is the strands. And that's it.
Okay, brilliant.
Okay, your turn.
Yeah. Oh man.
It's easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so just give yourself the structure of the hair.
So I'm going for a shape first.
First the shape. And roughly as you see it. And can I just say something?
Yeah.
Break up the shape. So don't think of this as one thing. Think of this coming across.
Yeah.
And then this bit attached to it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you drew it in a few parts, eh?
Always draw it in parts, if you can.
While I do that, I just wanted to quickly let you know that we have a free guide called Life Drawing Success at lovelifedrawing.com/lifedrawingsuccess. Go and get it if you haven't already. We've got really good feedback on it and it's free.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, give yourself the light and remember, whatever the direction of the hair, it will be going at right angles to that.
Okay. So you can use the side of your hand, eh?
Yeah, you can use the side of your hand. Use whatever you prefer. Whatever feels comfortable to you. And don't be afraid to use your thumb as well, because you can be a bit more controlling with that. Or your finger, yeah.
So it's a little bit.
Yeah. Basically, one of the things to bear in mind is once you start drawing like this, you start to see a lot more than you can actually handle. So you do have to sort of, you can't put every
I can see all
strand
kinds
in.
of stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Once you start looking at it, it starts to do your head in.
A bit crazy, yeah.
So you have to sort of pull back a little bit.
Okay.
Now that you've pulled some light out, give yourself some dark areas where you see them. Can I do one thing?
Yes.
One of the things you could do is establish it as a shape. So
and then, okay.
all of this is dark, let's say.
Yeah.
All of this is dark.
And then just...
And then give yourself, and then darken that area.
So
that's another way.
Very simple, like simplifying the shapes.
Yeah.
All right. Do you reckon I should try some strands?
Let's go for the strands.
And that was literally just going for it.
Just go for it. In the direction that they're going, and the shapes that you've put in already should remain. And what I'd say, can I show you something else?
Yeah.
Regarding using the rubber, if you're using a putty rubber, what you can do is you can flatten an edge. So, hopefully this isn't out of focus. I've made this edge sort of flatter, so I can now use that to sort of draw strands.
Okay.
Now what I'd say is come back with a tiny little bit of structure, like sort of around the outside, and then use the rubber to sort of define the outside of the head, if you see.
So a line?
Yeah. And this is the thing I tend to find is that, like, I'll start off with structure, then I start to get involved in the drawing.
Yeah.
And I start to lose some of that. So I bring it back a bit every time that happens. And my drawings tend to go from losing the structure and bringing it back, losing the structure and bringing it back. That's basically...
Shall I do the extra strands?
Yeah, give that a go.
So we got one
coming across.
Is there anything to keep in mind with this?
Let me show you something, actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to get rid of that for the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. And where's the rubber? Just going to get rid of that. Generally, what I try and do when I'm drawing strands is I establish the shape of them first. And the reason I've drawn that line is that I can now build upon that line. The strand of the hair roughly does that, but now there's a slightly larger bit there. Can you see how I've just sort of built onto that bit?
Yeah.
There's a strand that appears near the bottom here. So I don't instantly go like this. I sort of put it in the direction that I see. When I see that there's a darker bit here, start to darken it.
If you'd like to learn how to apply this to other hair types, fair hair and curly hair, or how to use it with other materials, please let me know in the comments below. And while you're here, why not check out one of our other awesome videos up on screen. And as always, thank you so much for watching.